Okay, and now it's time for our weekend picks. First up, we're going to talk about the heavyweight matchup between two veterans of the heavyweight division. Two guys who have been through their fair share of wars, have been through the ringer once or twice. Talking about the 12-round match between Derek Chisora and David Price. I want to make this crystal clear that both guys have an out because both guys can punch. You know, David Price, he doesn't take the best punch, but he certainly does pack one, doesn't he? And given how aggressive Derek Chisora can be at times, there is a window of opportunity for that to work against him, against an interesting puncher like David Price. In turn, when it comes to Derek Chisora and his out, his window of opportunity, David Price would be tasked with boxing around an overly aggressive opponent who is fully capable of putting him down. And can he do that for a full 12 rounds? Can he avoid being chinned by a guy like Derek Chisora for 12 full rounds, 12 3-minute rounds? And I dare say no. I know that both guys have an out. I know that both guys have a window of opportunity. But in this matchup, I am deciding to go with Derek Chisora. I like his energy as of late. I like his momentum. I think this is a guy who's feeling himself, you know? He's very confident ahead of this fight. And David Price, he looks a bit confident himself. But overall, in a 12-round fight, I can't trust David Price to box around Derek Chisora and not be susceptible to his aggression. That Derek Chisora will work hard to draw David Price out into a war, make him uncomfortable, stay in front of him, throw a lot of punches, and force him to open up. And when he does, that's when Derek Chisora may put him down with an overhand right, something along those lines. So in that matchup, I am deciding to go with Derek Chisora. I'll say again that it's not like David Price doesn't have an out. He does. It's possible that he knocks out Derek Chisora, given how aggressive Derek is. But overall, I like Derek's odds in this fight, and I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with him to stop David Price, maybe 6-7 rounds. Derek's a very aggressive guy. He wants to do big things. And I think that he will continue to build on what momentum he has amassed so far. And I guess what the determining factor for me here is durability. Which one of these two guys can you trust to deal with a hard shot that gets through? Which one of these guys can weather a strong blow? And I have to say that edge goes to Derek Chisora. I mean, both guys can punch, and you could even make the argument that maybe David Price is a bigger puncher than Derek Chisora. But David is just not durable enough for me. You know, it's a tough sell. Whenever David Price is fighting in a 12-round fight, it's a tough sell for me that he won't get clipped at some point. So I'm going to go with Derek Chisora because I can't trust David Price to not get clipped in
this fight.
In a 12-round fight, 3 minutes around, I just can't trust it. So I'm going with Derek. We then come to what is that same card's main event. The 140-pound unification fight between two unbeaten world champions looking to cross over into the next stratosphere. Regis Prograis versus Josh the Tartan Tornado Taylor. I thought long and hard about this thing because this is a 50-50 fight in all the ways that last week's fight was a 50-50 fight. The fight between Artur Beterbiev and Oleksandr Gvozdyk. You know, this is a fight where you can't fault anyone for picking opposite of you. You know, if you think that Regis is going to win or you think that Josh is going to win, there's an argument there that, yeah, you know, maybe that guy does. But I'll say that I'm going with Regis Prograis. I'm going with Regis Prograis because of the performance put forth by Josh Taylor in the Ivan Bedichuk fight. I talked about it in my post-fight reaction video, how I expected that Josh would use his height, use his jab to offset the aggression of Ivan Bedichuk and keep the little man out, and he kind of did the opposite of that. You know, he used his in-and-out game. He bounced in and out of range on Ivan Bedichuk, but there were moments where he's mixing it up with Ivan, mid-range to inside, giving up his height to the smaller man, and interesting shots actually landed for Ivan.
Here and there.
I mean, we know who won the fight. We know that Josh won the fight, and that's all well and good. But those pockets of success that Ivan had, those small moments where he gets through with a little hook here, a little shot there. If that's Regis, if that were Regis landing that same kind of punch, I think it would have warranted a different reaction from Josh. Josh is a fighting guy, you know. He's got a dog in him, this guy. This guy likes to fight. He likes to mix it up. He likes to hurt the other guy. Makes for very entertaining fights. Mm-hmm. But in a situation with Regis Prograis, given how big a puncher this guy is, I mean, this guy really does pack a wallop. And Josh does too. It's just that out of those two guys, I'd have to say that the edge in power would have to go to Regis. And with Regis being the puncher that he is, it really would behoove Josh Taylor to use his height, use his jab, use his mobility and his movement to keep the smaller man out. But I don't trust Josh to do this. I think that Josh is going to go in there looking to make a statement, and that's what's probably going to get him knocked down. Maybe once or twice. Yeah, I could see a knockdown. I don't know that this fight ends in a knockout, but I definitely see a knockdown happening. It could happen to Josh. The reason for that being that both of these guys just so happen to have the same sweet spot. Mid-range to inside is where both Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor do their best work. It's where they land their more interesting punches. But at that range, you know, if Josh Taylor steps into the kill box, if he steps into the pocket with Regis Prograis, well, at that range, I favor Regis Prograis. I favor his counter-punching. I favor his upper body movements, him slipping shots and firing back. I favor his power at that range over Josh Taylor. You gotta understand that Josh Taylor, he's not one of these outside fighters that's gonna fight the whole fight behind his jab, firing straight shots from the outside, firing shots from a safe distance. He's not that kind of fighter. This is a guy who likes to do business in the pocket. It's just that if he does that with Regis, well, you're making yourself susceptible to his power. You're making yourself susceptible to his counter-punching. We know that Josh Taylor has some real good in and out game, that this is a guy that knows how to bounce in and out of range at will, you know? But he's not going to fight the whole fight from the outside. When he steps into range, he's looking to mix it up on the inside, whether it's upstairs or downstairs. And if he tries that with Regis, I hate to say it, you know, some people might not like it, but I think that Regis could hurt him there. I think so. I want to say that Josh Taylor is an aggressive kind of fighter. He's an aggressive kind of fighter that has in and out game. Not to be confused with a pressure fighter who feels most comfortable just coming forward and always comes forward. Josh Taylor is a more layered, more nuanced fighter than that. But he is an aggressive fighter, you know. He's not an economic guy. He likes to go in there and beat the other guy up. But every time you try to do that, every time you open up on Regis Prograis, you're affording him the opportunity to slip and hook, evade and counter. And you don't want to give him that opportunity given how heavy-handed he is. So, I'm not expecting Josh Taylor to all of a sudden become an economic, pot-shot, outside kind of guy who's riding his bicycle. I'm not expecting him to do that. I'm expecting Josh Taylor to stay in character. But if he is to do that, what I'm also expecting is that the poise, the upper body movement, the head movement, and the counter-punching of Regis Prograis will be there to meet him.
And beat him.
Let's talk about the poise and control of Regis Prograis and why it's convinced me that he's going to win tomorrow's unification match. Regis Prograis, the aesthetic of one of his fights, you know, you watch this guy in action, and he seems like a more experienced, more mature fighter than he actually is, because he's a young guy, and he's a newly crowned champion, but he goes out there and he looks like he's been doing this forever. You know, he's a very purposeful fighter. He doesn't waste his punches. He doesn't go out there throwing shots for the sake of throwing shots. He throws a shot, there's a lot of intent behind it. A lot of intent and a whole lot of fucking mustard. Really does have a sniper-like quality to him. And given that the guy he's facing tomorrow is such an aggressive guy, I mean, he's a nuanced fighter. Yeah, Josh is very well-rounded, but he is aggressive, and he will open up on Regis. I feel like Josh is going to do his best to try to be the aggressor, try to outwork the other guy. I think he's going to do this, and I think that this is what Regis is going to capitalize on. Regis doesn't have to hit a guy too much to hurt the guy. He just needs to hit him at the right time. And I think this is going to work against Josh Taylor. So I'll say that I'm going to go with Regis Prograis to win tomorrow's fight on points. Behind the cleaner, clearer punches, maybe one or two knockdowns. You know, I'll reiterate, I'm not sure that tomorrow's fight ends in a knockout, because sometimes when you got two guys that can really punch, and they know that they can punch, they give each other that respect in the ring. So, you know, they might give each other that, you know, enough respect to where the fight goes to the cards. I'm not sure it ends in a knockout. Wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not sure that it ends in one. And I'm going to go with Regis Prograis on points behind the cleaner, clearer punches, and maybe one or two knockdowns. So look, let's see if I'll be right tomorrow. I mean, if you're picking Josh, I can totally see why. He has an avenue of opportunity as well to be the busier fighter, the more mobile fighter, maybe the ring general, you know? Maybe he makes Regis struggle to find that one knockout shot by moving around that ring. Maybe it happens that way, but I'm going to go with Regis. I'm going to go with Regis, and I think Regis will be the new unified champion in the 140-pound division. Now, you may be wondering as to whether or not the winner of this fight can secure a spot on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, and I actually fielded this question before that, yes, the winner of this fight is a shoe-in to land a spot on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Now, given the current state of the list, the only spot that the winner of this fight can occupy is the number 10 spot, where Julian Williams, unified junior middleweight champion Julian Williams, is seated. The winner of this fight will effectively bump him off. It being that while Julian Williams is a unified champion, and the winner of this fight will be a unified champion, the tiebreaker is that the winner of this fight, whether it's Josh or whether it's Regis, they will have unseated more active reigning world champions than Julian Williams. Julian Williams has only ever beaten one active world champion, whereas the winner of this fight will have beaten two to get to this point. If Josh Taylor wins, not only will he have unseated the undefeated IBF champion Ivan Bedichik, but he would have also unseated the undefeated WBA champion Regis Prograis, and the same is true in reverse. If Regis Prograis is to win tomorrow's fight, well, not only did he unseat the WBA champion Kirill Rillik, but he would have also unseated the undefeated IBF champion Josh Taylor. That's two active reigning world champions to Julian Williams 1. Now, I know that given last weekend's fight, there has been some surgence amongst the boxing fans, the boxing community, ranking Artur Beterbiev, now the unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev, on their pound-for-pound list. And that might incline some to ask, well, why didn't Artur get a spot on the list? Well, it's because of what I just told you. Artur Beterbiev, you know, when he became the IBF champion, he didn't have to beat a champion to be a champion. He won that title when it was vacant. Thus, beating Oleksandr Gvozdyk last week, that was the first time that Artur actually unseated an active reigning champion, which brings his body count to 1, whereas the winner of tomorrow's fight has a body count of 2. Two active reigning world champions that either guy would have had to beat to get to this point. Thus, if you're wondering why Artur is not ranked on this list, that would be the why. That would be the reason that, yes, Artur is unified, the same way that the winner of tomorrow's fight will be unified. But the difference is these two guys had to beat a champion, an active reigning champion, for every single belt they're in possession of. And that is the proverbial tiebreaker. Now, had Gvozdyk won the fight, Gvozdyk would have got a spot. But why? Well, Gvozdyk would have beaten two world champions, Stevenson and Beterbiev. But that's not how the cookie crumbled. That's not how it happened. I will say that if Artur Beterbiev is to secure a third world title sometime in the near future, perhaps in a fight against Dmitry Bivol, that will allow him to be integrated into this list and bump off the winner of Prograis versus Taylor, because not only will Artur have beaten the same number of world champions that the winner of tomorrow's fight will have beaten, but he'll be in possession of more world titles. The same applies to Julian Williams. If Julian Williams is to add another world title to his collection by unseating another active champion, he'll bump the winner of tomorrow night's fight off this list. Because this list, it runs off facts and stats, not opinions and not anecdotes, mine or yours. I know that many people were impressed with Artur Beterbiev's showing against Gvozdyk. Rightfully so. He did look impressive. But so did Regis Prograis against Kirill Rillik. So did Josh Taylor against Ivan Bedichik. So, what impresses you, might not impress somebody else. Or maybe somebody else is impressed by both. In which case, we're going to need some kind of a tiebreaker. That's why we stick to the facts, we stick to the stats, and we put the anecdotes aside to rate the fighters evenly, based on what they managed to accomplish. Because what they managed to accomplish is the ultimate reflection, the only reflection of their skills. And that's what a pound-for-pound list is, after all. It's an assessment of skill. It's not an assessment of how impressed you are, how impressed I am, or the boxing community. It's not that. It's not that. It's not a popularity contest. At its base, a pound-for-pound list, that is a pound-for-pound list, is an assessment of skill. You got a lot of different pound-for-pound lists out there, and they're all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to make an assessment of skill. They're trying to gauge the skill level of the fighters ranked within their lists, but how they come to those conclusions varies depending on which list you're looking at. Sometimes you can't even reconcile what kind of logic, if any, goes into some of these lists. Whereas here at Ring IQ, we're just sticking to the facts, okay? We're using what these fighters managed to accomplish as a reflection, a testament of their skills. Because had they not had the skills, well, they wouldn't have accomplished so much. There are common denominators between the all-time greats of the past and the pound-for-pound fighters of the present. And these common denominators make up the governing criteria of the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. And whoever can check off on most, if not all, of the criteria, well, that fighter ends up at the top of the list. The winner of tomorrow's fight will secure a spot on the list, but it is the number 10 spot, and that's the spot where the fighter seated there is in the most danger of being bumped off until he or she can amass more accomplishments to further advance to higher tiers of the list. The number 10 spot should really be thought of as a placeholder spot, an interchangeable spot, and the spot on the list where the most movement occurs. The higher up you go,
Up and away!
the less movement you see, because you know those guys, your Manny Pacquiao, your Terrence Crawford, your Vasily Lomachenko, your Canelo Alvarez. These guys are so accomplished that they're hard acts to follow. Whereas towards the bottom of the list, you know, these are definitely some of the best fighters in the world, no doubt about it. But there's room for growth, there's room for more legacy. So we'll see which one of these two guys ends up on this list tomorrow. But if you're ever looking at this list and wondering what the governing criteria is, how it works, and why certain fighters are ranked in such a fashion, well, that would be the why, that would be the reason. The most accomplished fighter that's in possession of a world title, that's the fighter that ends up in the top spot. The guys towards the bottom, those eggs need more bacon.